Welcome to a Panda Breakthrough System. I have a new tool to increase your quality score and overall optimize your site. It's really interesting and I just discovered it. It allows you to perform a full analysis of your site to uncover hidden issues. Using this data, you're going to be able to resolve and improve the on-page performance of your website, which should result in a significant traffic increase. So it actually doesn't take much time at all. It takes less than 15 minutes in my testing and allows you to perform a full site review. In my testing, I found that many of the websites that I thought were already optimized were actually not optimized. It allows you to really get a good overview of the website. So I'm going to show you exactly what it is, how to use it, and within minutes you'll be finding things about your website that you had no idea were there. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go to screamingfrog.co.uk/SEO-Spyder. That's the URL, screamingfrog.co.uk/SEO-Spyder. You might want to download it on this as you're watching this video, so you'll be able to use it as we go along. There's a free download for Windows, free download for Mac, and a free to download for Ubuntu. So there's really no option, no computer that should not be able to run it. And the free version is actually what I'm going to be using, and it's good enough. If you have a giant website and you really want to take this all the way, they do offer a license, but I'm using the free one, and until I need to buy a full one, I'm not going to buy one. So let's once you've installed it, it's going to look exactly like this. This is the main login screen, and I'm running version 2.30. So by the time you're watching this, it might have changed because there are many updates happening all the time. I think there was an update yesterday, and they're continuously improving this. So the first thing you do is you type in your URL that you want to crawl, so basically your website. So I'm going to use an example. I'm going to do ClutchKills.com. This is an example of an old website that has a lot of lingering issues, and we're going to be able to see why those issues are there, what's happening, and everything. So we're just going to let it crawl. It actually crawls pretty quickly if you have a decent internet connection. And to give you a reference point, let's take a look at the site we're crawling. The site that we're crawling looks like this. Doesn't look like a bad site, looks kind of decent. It doesn't look spammy, it's not like a blog or anything. And these are the results. Okay. So you're gonna have a lot of things listed here, and the first thing I always say is you want to go filter, and you want to filter to HTML. Once you filter to HTML, what I usually do is I sort by address, because I like having everything kind of lined up alphabetically. It makes looking at things easier. Then what we're gonna do is I want you to look at page titles. It's gonna be the first one, and here is you're gonna be able to see all your page titles. This is often very, very revealing because you get to see how Google sees your site in terms of titles. So if we look at this site, in terms of titles, this is horrible. This is absolutely horrible. Why? Because most of the titles are repeating. 90% of the title is basically clutch kills, FPS gaming, strategies, guides for Team Fortress 2, quick, and it's the same thing over and over and over and over and over for every single article. So basically Google looks at this and says, every single article is the same, judging by the title. This is the pure example of keyword stuffing your title, and it ends up hurting you because when Google looks at your entire site's relevance, you end up seeing that most of it is just basically the same thing over and over and over again, except for one word. This is a major problem. Instead, in the next module, when we're going through the fixes, and I have some really good and quick and efficient fixes for you, we're going to see that we want to have 90% of an original title, and then at the end we could have our brand name. So it's going to be the complete opposite of this, which is keyword stuffing to the max and then a small original. We're going to switch that and change it to original to the max and with a little maybe keyword at the end. So this is going to be really revealing. The things you want to make sure is you have titles for all your articles that you want to rank. So nearly every single page should have a title, and you want to make sure that they're not spammy. You don't have the same thing repeating over and over again. The next section we want to take a look at is going to be the meta description section. The meta description section is also very important. You'll realize that sometimes you have the same meta description over and over again. Sometimes you don't have any meta descriptions when you should have some. Meta descriptions could really help you in the search engines. So what I strongly recommend is if you don't have any, you might want to go and write some for your best articles. This is really going to help. And in this case, we have some for every single article, and they're actually pretty decent. So this is a good example. And you'll be able to see that only the categories don't have meta description, but in reality, categories actually could get a lot of search engine traffic. There's some sites that rank really well for their categories, and in this case, you might want to have a good title and a good meta description of your categories. So this, we would now know that these are the ones that we want to address. Next thing we want to take a look at is meta keywords. Meta keywords are used mostly by Yahoo and Bing. And they keep on updating it. People are moving away from it, but e-commerce stores, especially Amazon, uses meta keywords. So you might want to start putting in some meta keywords if you want. But if anything, this is the more optional one. Now we're going to dive into some really interesting things. We're going to look at the H1s. The H1s are often really revealing, and H1.1 means the first H1 it finds. H1.2 means the second H1 it finds. Now you only want to have one H1, but if you don't have any H1s at all, then you're in big trouble. You want to make sure you always have an H1, and you want to make sure it's always related to whatever you're talking about here. So let's go sort this by address. Let's take an example. Let's go take a look. This URL is called Left 4 Dead Strategy Guide and Tweaks. Left 4 Dead Strategy Guide and Tweaks. That's a pretty good title. The Art of Bluffing, that works. The URLs, the titles are following along, and that works well. Sometimes you could have a secondary H1, and that's perfectly fine as well. If you don't have one, a secondary H1, that's okay as well. So you want to make sure you have an H1 for every single article. If you don't, and we're going to see a few examples where people don't, it's going to be you're going to have a serious issue. Second one is the H2. H2, this is usually where things start to get really interesting. Now let's take a look at these H2s, and every single H2 is going to be exactly the same. We have recent posts for all the H2s. So when we're trying to rank for something like Left 4 Dead Strategy Guide and Tweaks, Google's looking at our relevance here and saying, hey, this secondary headline is for recent posts. So not only do all our articles look the same to Google, but they think that we're trying to give them relevance for recent posts, which we're not. We don't care about recent posts inside of this. The reason this happens is because the coder of the template did not know that you probably shouldn't be using H2s for styling purposes, and instead you should use different codes and reserve H2s for your actual content. So this is going to be the reason why we have H2 here, and Google scans this, and Google's just a robot, so they pick up a subheadline to say recent posts. Okay, so that's not much relevance. What's even worse is we have a secondary H2, and these are all recent comments. So here we have a recent comment, which means that when Google's scanning the entire site, they keep on picking up the same subheadlines and all over the place, which looks as if all the articles are very, very similar. Therefore, you might have a lot more trouble ranking, not only because you don't have recent relevant subheadlines, but because they all look the same. So this should be really revealing to you in terms of what's happening on your website. And when you do this, a lot of people are going to realize that, whoa, their website is not ranking for a reason. Lastly, images. Images are really important. So what you want to do is, and the order doesn't really matter, but as you go through, you want to make sure that you have some relevant keyword names. When you look at the majority of your images, are they related to your topic? So if we're looking at here, are they related to the topic? And I'd say here they are. They definitely are. We have Razer, we have EVGA, we have Samsung, we have TF2, we have Left 4 Dead. So these are excellent image file names. So this is kind of like something that you want to look at in terms of good file names, and this is going to be excellent. One last thing that we want to take a look at using this tool is going to go back to internal. So it's going to list all the websites. We're going to make sure that we're trying to look at always status code 200. And the next thing we want to go is you want to scroll all the way to the right hand side. All the way. It gives you a lot more information. And if you want to find out if you have low, thin content, one thing you could do is you could go word count and sort it by word count. And you'll be able to see that the word count of the lower ones, so for instance, here we have 447 words, 450 or so. These all have very low word count. So if you want to have a quick method of figuring out what's thin and what's not, this is an excellent way. So that's going to be the first review. Like these would be excellent, 2,000, 3,000 words. You want to have at least, if you could get 3,000 and over, up to 10,000, 12,000, this is like the kind of the word count that you want to have. If most of your articles, most of your pages are in the, let's say, 300 range, and you're talking about static content around the site, that's when you're going to run into issues. I even realize that we still have a hello world post, the default post, so we might want to delete that as well. So using this tool, as you could see, we've uncovered tons and tons of things. And I'm going to show you another example right now. So let's dive into our second example. Second example is going to be howtoseduction.com. So let's go here. Let's plug it into our bot, and it's just going to start scanning, and it should go relatively quickly, especially because we have the limited version, which just has 500. But you know what, with 500 usually you're perfectly fine, because you end up being with 500 you get a good idea of what you need to do and what's wrong. Usually in the first, the same trend repeats over and over again. I'm probably eventually going to buy it myself, but I want to bring you this as quickly as possible. Okay, so it's completely done now, and the first thing I always do is I sort it by address, and if it says move temporarily, you want the status code 200s. There we go. These are the good ones, and I filter by HTML. The first thing we're going to do is page titles. Ouch. Ouch, 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 ouch. Look at this. Look at how many titles we're missing right here. We're this is actually really sad. This should have a title. This should have a title. This should have a title. So as we can see, we have a lot of pages here that have absolutely no titles. So can you imagine how bad this looks to Google and how much this hurts? This is a major issue that we've just uncovered right here, where there are no titles right here and right here, right here. Now let's also go to, so obviously the solution would be to start adding some titles. And I'm going to show you in the next video how to do this in an efficient way and in the best way possible. Meta description. Okay, this is good. Having a good varied meta description for every single article. And one thing I like to do is always sort it to see if we have, see when we sort it by address, a lot of times we're going to see that the same meta description is repeating over and over again. You want to have unique meta descriptions for every single page. Now the reason that this is like this is because it's page 1, page 2, page 3. You still want to have different meta descriptions for every single page. So this could also be an issue where you have repeating meta descriptions. Now let's not go too crazy. A bit of repetition for meta descriptions is, it won't break your site. Google is still relatively lenient on this, but you want to make sure you have unique meta descriptions whenever possible. Meta keywords. All right, we have a few meta keywords. That's not bad. That's probably why this site right now is getting its majority of its traffic from Bing and Yahoo. That's most likely why it has the meta keywords. Now let's look at the H1s. All right, H1s, and I'm going to sort it again because I want some order in my life. H1s, we're going to see that we have the same H1 over and over again. That's not great. Same H2. You can see how these are all repeating in all keywords. When Google is going to look at this, going to say they're going to find there's a lot of repetition, and Google hates repetition. Google wants uniqueness. So the problem with this is that there's so many things repeating over and over again. These could definitely be optimized. Now, are they horrible? At least we have H1s, and they're kind of relevant, but we want to have uniqueness. We want to have originality. Now let's go see H2s, see how to Oh man, here's a major issue. This is what I'm talking about, where once again the theme decided to use H2s for styling purposes, and therefore every single H2 for every single site is going to be categories. So that's not very good. When Google's looking at this, they're saying, okay, what's a good opener? And then say, okay, categories. What? That doesn't really go together, and it looks as if we're losing out on a lot of relevance. Same thing for the secondary H2, all the same thing. Also not good. So we want to really fix this, and we want to make sure that all our H2s are relevant, unique, original to whatever article we're ranking, and that's really going to help out in terms of our SEO. So now let's go to images, and apparently it did not crawl the images. What? Images. Okay, I think the reason maybe we don't have any images here is because we went over the 500 limit. But that's okay. So as you can see, we've uncovered a lot of issues. And now I'm going to keep on going and do 2 more just for you guys to get an example of different situations. If you want, you could skip over to the next module where we're going to be talking about resolving the issues. Otherwise, stay with me. We're going to be doing 1 more or 2 more. We're going to take gamingpc.ca. All right, let's rock on. Because repetition just makes it easier. You guys are going to see exactly what we look for and why and everything. Why we make the decisions that I make. And we're just going to let it load. So I'm going to try to make some movie magic. Actually, it's going really quickly, but we're going to try to make some movie magic. Make sure that it goes quick for you guys. Little editing. Yeah, definitely some editing. All right, great. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to go and sort it by name. We want to make sure we're getting the status code 200s too. Just make sure that, there we go, that's good. And we're going to be going to page titles once again. Page titles, we can see the page titles are average. I'm going to say average because, okay, this is good. We have a conflict here where we have this, and this. Google kind of treats these the same. They're decent. Yeah, the page titles are not that bad as we're going through. We do have a lot of repetition though. We want to have more original in our titles than repetition. So yeah, the titles are not horrible. They're actually pretty decent as we're going to go through. Yeah, especially when we get down to the actual categories. The titles are varied enough. We do have some good variants there. So the title is going to be decent. And then let's go to meta description. Oh, wow. Big problem right here, right off the bat. See, the meta description is always going to be the same for everything, or there is no meta description. So either it's the same or there's no meta description. That's one big point. Right away, you could completely improve on this and get some serious changes, because right now, absolutely everything is just going to be copied over. So that's an issue that we uncovered right there. Let's go look at meta keywords. Once again, ouch. This is not good because the meta keywords are going to be just stuffed the same keyword throughout the entire site. And I see this a lot. I mean, it's just the same thing over and over throughout the entire site, where the owners did not actually change the meta keywords on the site. So that's going to be another issue. Now let's look at the H1s. And ouch. Once again, we're going to have serious issue with the H1s where the H1 for is always exactly the same. Tech news. The actually saving grace. Let's go. Here's something that's actually decent. The saving grace is that there's actually varying H2s here. So these are varying H2. The secondary H1s are changing. So as you can see, you have some changing secondary H1s, which does give it some originality. And this will, although not ideal, it will still help you basically rank. So that's not bad, except we do have some places that don't have an original H1 or H2, H1 or secondary H1. So this is going to be one glaring thing that you could immediately go to work on and change the code around and improve on your website. Now let's go to H2. And H2, let me just order them again. H2s, and once again, we have some places that don't have H2s that should have H2s, and we get to see that we have in stock as an H2, which we probably shouldn't be using. So this website also has another, decent amount of issues relating to H1 and H2 and meta descriptions and meta keywords. So now let's go to images. And images, we're going to see that this is good. This is actually very good, where we have exactly what we want. We have different file names, and the file names are relevant. So we got gaming PC, we got gaming, we have select, we have computer, we have speakers, so this is excellent. This is the file names that you want. It's really going to give a lot of relevance and quality to your website. So this is the type of stuff that you definitely want. So they got the images down. The major things they need to change is going to be the titles are good. It's the meta descriptions, the meta keywords, and the H2s. And there could be some improvement on the main H1, but at least they have a secondary H1. So this isn't as bad as you might think, because in order of importance, the titles are the most important. As secondary is going to be the having at least unique H1. So this is definitely not great, but at least they have secondary H1. Then we're gonna have H2. Then we have meta description. Meta description, you want to avoid having the same thing over and over. This is actually really bad. And then after that, you want to make sure you have original images. If these were all numbers, then Google really doesn't know what kind of relevance you have on your website, and they don't know what, if these are all numbers or copied images, they can't really assess what you're talking about. But when you have file names that reflect, all your topic, that makes it a lot easier for Google to categorize your website in a certain category. So let's go through one more. Let's go through a small e-commerce site. And the reason I'm going through a small e-commerce site is because it's small. And if I recall, this was actually decent. This is so far as it's loading, you'll be able to see it's actually pretty decent. If we look at the titles right now, we do have the brand at the beginning, and I would prefer to have the brand at the end. So for the title, let's go page titles. For the titles here, we would want to have titles, the main original part at the beginning, and then Ginger Diaries at the end to increase our rankings a bit. But as you can see, this is actually a really good example where everything's unique. Every single page is unique. Every single page has its own original title. So we're doing really, really well in this respect. Next thing, let's go see meta descriptions. And we have none. Okay, so obviously we would want to start writing out some meta descriptions. Now, I have to mention, if it's not 100% critical, you will not, your website won't die if you don't have any meta descriptions, but it will help. What we're trying to do is we're trying to optimize our site so it is the best website in the universe, and therefore you want to have some original meta descriptions. It's not about being, okay, it's about being the best. Let's take a look at meta keywords. Meta keywords as well, especially for e-commerce stores. E-commerce stores, you guys need your meta keywords. This is a great way to get your products found, so get yourself some meta keywords in there. The H1s. Now, the first H1, that's okay. So that means we're just going to skip over to the second H1. And as we see here, most of the pages have a decent and original H1, which is good. This is good. There's no problem with that at all. So this page site actually so far has some decent SEO happening on it. Secondary H2, yeah, all right. A lot of people get this wrong, where secondary H2, we're going to have reviews, product descriptions. Now, product descriptions is not that bad if you have an e-commerce store. You're going to end up having this, but ideally, you would want to have, if you're trying to rank as best as you can for bronze and pink stone color, then you want to have an H2 that has something to do with a bronze and pink stone color. Now, if all your competitors have exactly the same thing, it's not you're gonna rank on different merits. But ideally, if you want to be number one, then you're going to want to have a more optimized H2 as well. This might be difficult for e-commerce stores, I do realize, but it's all about being better than your competitors. It's not always about being perfect. Okay, now let's go to images. Images, here we go. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is not what you want. In terms of images, this is one point that we uncovered on this website that could really be improved. If these were all images that were very related to the page titles, this website would be doing much, much better. But as you can see, they just have their generic file name uploaded. And this tells Google absolutely nothing. So Google, when they look at this website, they say, okay, well, this is about, we don't know. We're going to have to trust the text, but Google doesn't really like to trust text. And the only thing you can find is Lucille. So they're going to think that this website is about Lucille, whoever Lucille is. Maybe she's the owner of the site, who knows. So this is the kind of stuff that you want to avoid. So one thing I would recommend then is to go and kind of rename your images so you have some more relevance. So I hope this was useful, and this should take about 3 to 15 minutes or so to analyze your site, and you're going to get some insights on how to change it. And in the next video, we're going to go over exactly how to do that in the most efficient way possible so that you could rank the best that you can for your website.